gyudan dembare chu. Dungal tang dungal ke gyudan talore chu. Dungal me be dewa tamba tang mindal ore chu. Nyereng chakdang nyedang talwe tang nyom chenpo la nebare chu roye chu. Sem chen tam che dewa tang dewe gyudan dembare chu. Dungal dan dungal ke jodan taware chu. Dungal me dewa ya tamba ya dan menda ware chu. Nyere cha dan nye dan talwe tang nyom chenpo la ne bare chu ro chi. Good morning, everyone. So, how are you doing so far? All good? No stomach upset or anything? Nope. You guys have very good karma. I rejoice that. All right, I guess so I'll continue with the root text, and I'm gonna read the root text out for you guys. And so I did say that I'll teach about meditation. So I'm thinking first I want to go through the text, and if we have a day or so left, then of course I would very much like to also discuss, about the meditation. But first I just want to go through this Namshe, Yeshe, because this is the main text. So I will read through the Vikoltsawa root text. Root text is by root text is Kamapa's own word, third Kamapa Rangjung Dorji's own word. And there is also, commentary by Jamgun Kongtro, the first, Lord Taye. Both to this meaning, to distinguishing consciousness from wisdom, and then also Nyingpo Tenpa, meaning pointing out the Tathagata Garbha. Both Jamgo Kongtrumboche, he wrote a commentary on that. This is the commentary actually we find. Anyhow, just giving you some, information about that. All right, I'm going to stick to the root text as much as I can, so that because of our bond with the with the lineage. So it's I figured that it is important for us to stick to the root text as much as possible, not to drift away from that very much. So this is what I'm going to do. Um, all right. So generally speaking, like I said in the first day, it's really basically this book, this teaching, I should say, is really about, our mind. When we say it is our mind, it really means samsara. Samsara 100% is none other than our own experiences. Without our experience, there's nothing, correct? There's nothing actually without our experience. So it's named after our experience of good, bad, and ugly. We call them emotion, but it's just good, bad, and ugly, or just very common stuff. It does not have to be good, bad, and ugly all the time. It can be just very normal stuff too, actually. Most of the time, maybe it's just very normal, normal thought, so to speak. Nonetheless, when we go too deep into that, one way of understanding the mind is actually, I'm thinking, is to really self-reflection. Thanks to the COVID, so to speak, I actually really sort of start thinking a lot about that self-reflection. At the end of the day, it's your own mind. No one else can really know it. No one else can really do anything about it. Of course, some others can help you with their, let's say, sharing their own thoughts regarding whatever you may be feeling, because there is a mutual understanding, as because humanly we have this very mutual experience of the pleasant, unpleasant. Our emotions are very mutual from that point of view. For example, my own attachment is not different from the attachment of any one of you, correct? And then also my ignorance, your ignorance, there's a mutual, these are mutual, sort of commonly mutual. So this is why we can relate, to each other. But then again, at the end of the day, it's individual. I can never ever give my feelings, my emotions to somebody. This is not at all possible. For example, I cannot really literally give my happiness to somebody else. Even if you want it, how you are going to do that? There is no way you can do it. You know, otherwise, all the great bodhisattvas, Buddhas, they would have done it long time back. Correct? So there is no way. This is why it's called individual liberation. When we talk about liberation, we call it, the vows or the individual vows, stuff like that. But the liberation is very, very individual. Really, we have to work. You have to work. If you don't work, then it's not going to work at all. We come here, we listen to the teachings. I'm not just here, I'm just in general. We go to all these different types of teachings and you listen to them. Is that really enough? It's not enough at all. I very much believe there is a merit. That's it. There's a good karma. Yes, I believe that. That's not going to help with your mind. Good karma is not for mind. If you want to help your mind, your own mind can help your mind, not the karma. It's very different. So therefore, if I did not, first of all, we need try. So this is what, first of all, we need to sort of gather your own, let's say, whatever you have heard, whatever you have learned, whatever you have read, you want to gather them together. How you do that? How do you do that? You do that by reflecting. So this is why self-reflection becomes very important. And this is a very good meditation, I must say. One of the best meditation is self-reflection. You sit down and you really focus on the teachings. Teachings, you are at this point of time, you are not listening to somebody's voice, okay? You are not listening to the voice of, some teacher here. You are listening to your own inner voice, correct? we have this inner voice. It's so important to listen to that inner voice. Sometimes this inner voice, they are so clear. The true wisdom is that inner voice, and that inner voice is a voice of wisdom and knowledge. I guess sometimes it's also voice of some kind of emotion, but generally speaking, really, there is that. We need to. I was thinking that we need. We don't actually know how to listen, do we? No, we think we listen, but actually we really don't know how to listen. We need to listen to that your own inner voice. That that let's say. Uh, there is this glimpses of knowledge, wisdom, glimpses of bodhicitta, glimpses of renunciation, glimpses of everything. How can there be no glimpses when the mind is there? Because they are there along with all the emotions, correct? So how it is not possible that you can't have a glimpse? It's impossible to not have those glimpses. Unfortunately, the clouds of the emotions are so strong, we are actually not able to really, notice that. So now, when you sit down, I'm not saying it's not a work of a day or an hour or 15 minutes. It will not work like this. We need to be very consistent. You must be very consistent. If you did every morning like half an hour of meditation over the period of 6 months, 7 months, you will see the result. But but then your that meditation needs to be very consistent every single day. When you wake up in your bed, just sit down and do meditation. Why do you have to rush somewhere? Why you have to go to the bathroom and rush? Just wake up like 15 minutes earlier. What are you going to lose with that, actually? 15 minutes of what sleep? Come on. It doesn't matter. 15 minutes or half an hour of sleep, what does that matter, actually? And here we are, oh, I need my sleep, like 15 minutes, which does not make any sense. This is the height of our laziness. Can you see that? It's really, really height of laziness. We are so lazy in general, and when it comes to the Dharma, we are like top of the lazy people. And so this is my own loss, actually. It's my own loss. So anyway, I'm just sharing something that, in general. So people say I don't have time for meditation. It is true. I know you guys really work, very hard. But at the same time, if you don't, there always is a way to really find a time. You need to find time. You always find a time for other things, don't you? Then why you cannot find for Dharma practice? Why it is so different from meeting a friend, actually? You find a time to find to meet a friend, but you don't find time to meditate. It's illogical, actually. Completely illogical. It means you lack the motivation. We have to encourage ourselves. We have to if you don't motivate yourself, if you don't encourage yourself, who's going to do that for you? It's not like someday somebody will come and pick you up like this and throw you somewhere. It's never going to happen. I think I'm drifting a little bit here and there, but anyways, so please, I really I've been saying this to my friends in the States a lot, and so therefore I'm sharing these things with you. You adopt this habit, When you adapt a habit, then it gets easier and easier and easier. Yes, I know that it will be a little bit harder, at the very beginning. But once when your mind adapts to that, then it becomes more natural. The flow, please remember that the flow of the meditation, both the physical and the mental, synchronize, will not be there in the first 1 week. It takes time for the mind and for the body to synchronize. They must synchronize. When they synchronize, then there arises the the clarity actually. Again, you don't need to do anything. All you need to do is stand up. I mean, you just wake up, sit in your bed. I'm just saying in your bed. You, of course, you can have a cushion and things like this. I'm just giving a metaphor. But you don't want to lie down on your pillow and meditate like this. Please don't do that, because that's the height of laziness. It's like more laziness. This is almost like insulting Dharma, in my opinion. I'm sorry if I offend somebody, but that's not Dharma practice. That's practice of laziness. It's not like this. And then you can have logic. Oh, why not? I can sleep, but I can see my mind. So we don't want to give those kind of excuses. Actually, if you want to do something perfectly, you should do it perfectly. Why you are not doing it perfectly? It's not going to gain anything out of that. So don't do those things. I mean, it's a good idea to not do those things. I'm sorry, I'm not, I can't really force any one of you, but it's just my opinion I'm sharing. Respect is very important, really, not just, in life, but in Dharma, it's actually very, very important to respect that. You are actually respecting yourself. If you don't respect the path, you are never going to be successful at all, trust me. If there is no respect in your heart, how are you expecting any kind of result? No result at all. Anyways, I'm drifting again a little bit. So self-reflection, and then if you get some time, you maybe also want to do retreat from time to time. You have had maybe enough teaching. So now maybe it's about time that you gathered your own accumulation of wisdom over the period of 10 years, 15 years. I don't know how long you have been in Dharma. You have accumulated a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge. It is somewhere at the back of your mind, just lying there, correct, underneath all these emotions. So therefore, when you do meditation, I mean, like when you do a retreat, but perhaps you want a base for those hidden, very deeply underlying knowledge, wisdom. You read Bodhicharya Avatara, for example, and it will help you to really bring back those memories, those Dharma memories. It's so important to bring back those Dharma memories, and you gather them together, you recollect them, and then with strength, this is how you strengthen your potential of the wisdom. And once when they become enough, strong enough, this is when insight comes to you very automatically. Okay? So, yeah, so this is something that, we should do. Okay, now I'm going to read from the book. I want to continue from where I left yesterday. So yes, yesterday, the last part we talked about, it's very, the topic is, like I said yesterday, it's actually about different doctrines, school of thoughts, with regard to how the universe came about, what caused the universe, what caused the sentient beings, as you can see. But this is very deep, very, very big, actually. And this Nagarjuna, in his Madhyamika book called Mula Madhyamika Karika, he actually talks about this, meaning like he first, talks about this different, view from these different scholars with, regarding the cause for the universe, cause for the sentient beings, so what is that? And then within our own, let's say, Buddhist, school, like I said yesterday, there are four schools, of thought. We call Siddhant, for Siddhant. Two of them are, let's say, Hinayana, Theravadan, Vaibhashika, and Sautratika. Just saying I'm not going to repeat it. And then two of them are part of Mahayana, which is the Chitramatharin and the Madhyamika school. So they have different viewpoint with regard to the cause of, let's say, in the Mahayana, it's pretty same. this everything is projection of mind. Mind causes the sentient being and everything. And as far as the two Sautrantic kind of Vaibhashik are concerned, like I said yesterday, they're really the teaching in Abhidharma, part of the cosmology, part of the teaching. Even I heard in Kala Chakra, there is also part of that, like the time. Actually, we call it time and space. Time and it's actually about time and space, which is about different aeons and the universe, galaxies of the universe. So this thing that we talk about the particles, partless particle, actually, like yesterday or day before, Yakamapa was using the word molecule, something like this. He was actually referring to that, the most subtle part. Anyways, so it's not. Uh, so it's there is this part where I think, from what I understood, that the scientist and the Buddhist sort of meet a little bit to some point, is from that point of view, actually. From my point of view, I don't think we still meet at all. But from the physical aspect point of view, like I was saying yesterday, from the quantum physics, I don't, in Buddhism, we call it constitutes, like the elements, all of those. Anyways, it's just something I said yesterday, so I'm just reminding you. So don't think that, oh, it's just something, nothing. There is a very deep, wisdom in those teachings as well. So, but for that, you really need a lot of time to study, a part of Abhidharma teaching is that. But this is a part of Abhidharma teaching with regard to the cosmology. We call it cosmology. It basically means the universe, actually, and the sentient beings in it, the galaxies of the universes. So, all right. And then, of course, since everything is mind, then it's just very automatically, denied. You can see that. So matters are not responsible for our existence. Mind is responsible for our existence. So what is mind? It's as simple as that. Now we are going to know why mind, what mind, how many minds are there, what are their function, which basically means, how this is about samsara. Um, there's actually a very beautiful term in Abhidharma. We call it, samskara, asamskara. I think, in Tibetan we call it sakche sangme, but that means, the uh, polluted or contaminated phenomena and the non-contaminated phenomena. The contaminated phenomena are actually is in reference to the, to the samsara, both the mind as well as the, the universe, actually, the physical universe. When we say sagme asamskara dharma, then dharma here is not dharma practice. Dharma here means phenomena, existence. So then it refers to the nirvana, actually, the nirvana part. So in short, it means it refers to what is samsara and what is nirvana, actually, so to speak. And this becomes very deep in the part where Abhidharma talks about it. Like I said yesterday, again, just to remind you that also in Julama, where you're studying in the Uttara Tantra Shastra, I quoted that part where he talks about, the mind called Tiche Time. Timada Chepa means, a mind with the stains, and mind without the stains. And then in some book, like, like Kamapa's own book, he talks about, about Nirmanakaya, for example, emanation, the emanation with stain emanation. It basically meaning, Buddha with stains, Buddha without stains. So these are actually, in essence, it's all same. All right. All right. Now, so now this is the answer from the Buddhist point of view. What is Buddha's response to this question, which is, what is Buddhist stand regarding the cause of the universe? And this is the answer, actually. All right? The unique omniscient one taught that, meaning Buddha, those three realms are purely mind. So here you can see that Buddha is saying that it's simply mind, that's it. There's nothing more to it. There are no gods, there are no physical permanent entity that is responsible for that. Like in the Theravada, they talk about these partless particles, and in many others who is denying that, right, straight away, as you can see it. They are meaning the samsara or the phenomena in the samsara. They are not derived from themselves, not from that which is other, not from both, not from the absence of the cause. All phenomena arise through interdependence. I have to touch on that. I'll elaborate, but first I'll read it straight. Maybe perhaps I should stop there. This part is actually, okay, so here there is a word called interdependency or interdependent arising. We call tendel in Tibetan, tendel, tenching del warnjungwa. Pratitya samudpat, if I remember correctly, it's called pratitya samudpat. I'm just using these terms, because I want to plant the seed of this language, in the mind of everybody. So that is why. Now, coming back to this, so Tendel, there are two kinds of, let's say, dependent arising or interdependent arising. Interdependent arising of cause and effect. Interdependent in terms of cause and effect are actually 12 links of dependent origination. Again, most of you have got teaching on 12 links of dependent arising, correct? And this actually is a very like the answer to this question saying that how the world came about. The actual answer is the world came about through 12 links of dependent origination. So that dependent origination is with regard to the cause and effect. For example, ignorance is cause. Then through ignorance, then karma is cause. Through karma, consciousness cause. So they cause each other. The former link brings about the later link, correct? So this is just cause and effect. Here, when he says that, interdependent arising, we are not referring to that. Here we're referring to the interdependency in terms of actually dependency, meaning like, this interdependent. Nagarjuna, there is one whole chapter on this in his Mula Madhyamika Karika, praising the concept of interdependent arising. There actually is a book in English, again, I forgot the name. You should really read that, but I can't really remember the name of that. Actually, it is, the translation of that chapter of the Nagarjuna. So anyway, so what does this mean? It's actually the way to understand emptiness. What is the most profound method to know why phenomena lack any kind of true existence? Is by understanding how they are nature of dependent nature. For example, this is like short and tall, correct? This is very simple but very profound. East and west, short, good and bad. So that means all these things, interdependent, as indeed it doesn't exist. Actually, it's just a name, a label, and it's relative. Let's say, so there is a, tall person and there's a short person. So with regard to the short one, this is a tall person. Then comes the third person who is taller. So then that person who was tall is no longer taller, correct? Is actually short. Let's say fourth person comes. What is happening in here? Do you understand the concept of this? In our head, we think, oh, short and tall is something that exists on their own. They don't. It's all relative, dependent on, who you are actually talking about. On their own, tall, short, good, bad, white, black, all that. On their own, they don't exist. It's just our concept called namto. Our concept actually is what creates that. If you examine the object is neither tall nor short. The object actually doesn't exist. It doesn't exist as a table or as a as a tree or anything. It's all labeled. So this dependent arising, how things come about actually. So when you say how things came about because of the dependent nature of each other. In my opinion, there is this, let's say, we need to understand the mechanism of, mechanism actually. Like, for example, good, bad, tall, short, all these things, Mechanism meaning the something that you cannot pinpoint at all. And yet there is this mechanism happening, But when you analyze that mechanism, you can't pinpoint the mechanism also. Chain of reactions, correct? All these mechanisms happening all the time in our thoughts, in our mind. That's what Khenpo was saying here. All the great scholars say this. He's saying that, everything, all these phenomena, be it samsara, we talk about samsara, we talk about nirvana. Samsara doesn't exist as samsara. Nirvana doesn't exist as nirvana. Ignorance do not exist as ignorance. And here wisdom do not exist as wisdom. We are simply talking about them because we say ignorance, so we say wisdom. If there would be no ignorance, there would be no wisdom. Will there be? No. If there would be no pain, there will be no such thing as joy, correct? How can you have concept of the joy? Likewise, if there is no concept of us, me, you will never have the concept of others, would you? We simply have concept of other because I have the concept of me. It's just because of that concept. But in reality, me and that other, how do they exist in reality? Are they something that exists on their own? When you analyze that, they don't. So there's the mechanism of that, That's it. The mechanism actually is empty of existence. A mechanism is empty of any kind of inherent substantial existence. But they work. So the way they work is called mechanism. You really don't know, like you plant something, you get something out of that. You have no explanation. Even if you want to explain, there is no way that you can actually really have a logic saying that that's how they met. There is no such thing as meeting, is there? None. How can they meet? Because the first one has to die in order for the next one to be born, so to speak. But then, yet, there is something you did, there's something you get out of that. So tell me, how would you explain that? So the mechanism I'm talking about is very imperceptible, correct? You can only say mechanism in terms of some kind of energy, that's it. Meaning, because there was a cause, there is a result, that's it. This is the reason. Whether you like it or not, that's the reason. There is no reason besides that. There is no way to prove them through analytical, point of view at all. How are you going to do that? But yet no one can deny. So this is about karma, right? Karma and everything. How does karma work? I die. Where does my karma go? How can I have this karma that I've done like billions of years ago? It's like, okay, maybe that's not possible. It's possible. Simply because of the dependent arising nature of that. Actually, simply because they don't exist as true existence at all. This actually is the reason. And the reason karma, like the past karma, can produce all of these things is also because of the dependent arising nature. But that dependent arising nature is simply a name. Besides that, there is no true process. If you think of the process, you will never ever be able to prove that. The process is a mechanism. A mechanism is actually, a mechanism of, of past and present in the sense of, some characteristics of uh, elements of the phenomena. That's it. Or maybe I'm a little bit vague in this actually, but actually I don't know how to explain this other than that. So here, now this example of us, me, other, this actually is much better, no? I think for us to understand. No, really, when you think of that, same like joy, pain, wisdom, all of this. When I analyze my joy, when you analyze your pain, then that will disappear. I'm not saying the pain will disappear, but you cannot prove the true existence of that actually at all. So this word called tendel in Tibetan, the dependency, is like, for example, emptiness and existence. So we talk about existence, we talk about emptiness is because of the dependent arising nature of that. Meaning that because we think there is, there are existence of phenomena, and because of that we are talking about the emptiness of the phenomena. But whereas in reality there is no phenomena, correct? If there is no phenomena, how can there be emptiness? So in this way, like if I didn't exist, then how can other exist? Me, other, phenomena, emptiness are all, sort of named or sort of talked because of each other actually, but not because they exist truly. So in that manner, then this is Tendel Tenjin becomes very, powerful logic. There are many like logics, that you will find in Madhyamika books, which is to help us to understand the meaning of emptiness. And we call this dependent arising nature the king of the all the logics actually. We call Tenjin The Tibetan word is Tetu. It's actually very nice. They sort of, exist not because they exist substantially, truly. They exist because, they're just labeled because of each other, like east, west, north, south. And like I said, tall, short, good, bad, that's it. But in reality, they don't. And then this is how it functions, right? The reason things function, actually, this is the answer to that. How do things function? Everything's illusion, everything's emptiness. If that is the case, they should not function. So why do they function? The answer is they function not because they exist truly. They function actually because they don't exist truly, and therefore they are nature of dependent arising. And dependent arising actually is not arising the way how we think. It's not a true arising, correct? I'm not playing with the word. Please don't think I'm playing with the word. It's not. So, like I said yesterday, we have this fixation, in our mind of existence, emptiness. And we have this fixation. So, here is the existence, here is the emptiness. Emptiness destroys the existence Something destroys the existence and you get the emptiness. This is very wrong, actually. It's how it's explained by Chandrakirti in his Madhyamika Avatara. We're just seeing the truth at the end of the day, guys. Really. Nothing more, nothing less. This so called emptiness, so called existence, we are talking about the reality, the truth. So there is the absolute truth, there's the relative truth, correct? Reality, the truth. Yeah, since I spoke about that, uh, there is something called, the uh, the conventional cognition, okay, and then there is the absolute cognition, so to speak. The uh, um, Tanye Juje Jitsema. Yes. In Tibetan, we call Tanye Juje Jitsema. It actually means conventional logical cognition, you know, to prove how conventional or, existence exists. It's called conventional cognition. To our this cognition that, experiences the samsara, to it, this is true. In Heart Sutra, it is said by who taught Heart Sutra? Anyone who taught Heart Sutra? Who taught? Yes, yes. Thank you. Avalokiteshvara. I was thinking you may say Buddha. So I was going to scold, but then now, I can't. It's true, Avalokiteshvara. So coming back to this, in that, there is this line, says, in emptiness, right? This part is so very important. In emptiness, there is no eye, no nose, no tongue, no this, no that. What does that mean? It means he's saying that I'm not saying conventionally there is no eye, no nose, no tongue. Conventionally, to the conventional cognition of the confused mind, you do have an eye because you see, you hear. So I can't say you don't see, you can't hear because then I would be lying. But this is, you need to understand that, this is because with regard to your one very particular cognition, and that very particular cognition is the conventional cognition, correct? And then when it is said emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, all this stuff. This is not, with regard to the conventional cognition at all. Then this is with regard to the absolute cognition. This how in Hasu it says in emptiness. So meaning to these wisdoms of the bodhisattva in the meditative state, to that meditative state of that wisdom of the Nyamsha, during that phase, then yes, it is all emptiness. Even for the bodhisattvas, when they during the subsequent time, you know, meaning like, after the meditation, when they come out, called post meditation wisdom. During those post meditation time, they do have conventional cognition, but their conventional cognition is not like us. They see everything as just dependent arising, meaning pretty much illusion. That's it. So, anyways, here why I brought it up is we need to understand that. Also, in this one, to the mind of, deluded mind, like Chandrakirti says, if I, debate or argue it with common person, I will lose. And it is very true. He can't argue with the common people at all. What they see, what they hear, if I say, oh, there's no you, he may slap you actually. So he says, I can't debate with them. But I can debate with scholars. I can debate with bodhisattvas because they're on the same level. They will understand him from his point of view, from the absolute point. You need someone who also understands the absolute point of view. To them, then they can debate. Chandrakirti and Chandrakumi debated for 70 years in Nalanda Institute. Really, there's a very beautiful, story about them. One was the Madhyamika, one was the Chitramatra. They did not agree to each other. No, but of course they, played. It's just a play of, their wisdoms. So, it's not that they really were fighting or arguing, but they were doing this for us. Of course, their minds meet. In the absolute, their minds always meet. Like meeting of the minds from the absolute point of view. Our minds meet on the conventional level. That's why I said earlier, we have mutual emotions, but I don't think we meet so much on the absolute level. So that's where we get. But at the end of the day, then this is again dependent, correct? Can you see that? There is no absolute existing as an absolute. There is no convention existing. We're just saying that because there are these two things. But these things, in reality, the absolute is the absolute of this relative thing you're talking about, actually. Correct? What are you trying to understand? You're trying to know this very phenomena. This very phenomena is existence. And this very phenomena you are trying to understand is also absolute. And at some point of time, it goes beyond being absolute or no absolute or phenomena. Right? But as of now, there is that. So Tyndall anyway. I hope I said it in a way that you can understand. Tyndall really did so powerful actually. Like there is an example like if you want two sticks, to stick, if you want them to stand, they have to be, depend on each other, correct? If you move the other one, this will fall. But when you put them together, they lean on each other. Without the other cannot stand. But in reality, there is no, existence of that. The Tyndall, this isn't just that. Likewise, samsara, nirvana, existence, emptiness, all that. It's just Tyndall. When you think of the Tyndall, the point is through that understanding of the dependent arising, it cuts through it actually cuts through this notion of all these concepts of grasping. Can you see that really? The Tyndall, this understanding cuts through this grasping of existence, non-existence, emptiness. Then we arrive to this, realization of the emptiness, we can call it, which means you arrive to this realization of the non-existence of the both, actually, so to say. It's not you're emptying something. Again, the point is truth. You get to that reality, to that truth. We are seeing the absolute truth. We are seeing the conventional truth because of the conventional cognition, correct? And yet, the, at the end of the day, it's just all relative, is what I'm saying, correct, actually. Emptiness is relative, Buddha is relative, Bodhisattva, not in a negative way. It's all relative, my friends, all relative. The relative is also relative, correct? Don't think there is a relative. So this is what I'm saying. When you are said relative, you think, oh, okay, so there's relative. We are very strange from our point of view. We must grasp as if we can't really at all, live without grasping. So it's, oh, there is no existence. There is no emptiness. But there is, the relative. In that, just there and then, we create another concept of there being a relative. Here, Buddha saying relative in the sense of relative it actually means we don't understand the meaning of relative, no? If we truly understood the meaning of relative, we won't be clinging, would we? What does relative mean to you actually? It's just, I mean, from what I understand, I'm not a native English speaker, so I may be wrong. But in my understanding, relative actually means nothing. In the sense like there's nothing to grasp, nothing is right. But then again, concept creates concept, creates concept, creates concept. This is what we are doing. Like this example they give, they give an example of this insect that traps itself, actually. I think it's when you make a cotton, I think that, I don't know how you call that insect. So it wraps itself, and then it dies. It says we are like this: existence, no existence, emptiness, this. So we are actually, creating concept after concept. Whereas we need to cut through all the concepts. The whole point of here is we need to cut through that, really. Breaking of the concepts. Think out of the box is how we call it. But we are always thinking within the box. I don't know what that really meant, but I'm thinking it's true. We have this box of thing. We fear somehow, no? I think you fear. No, I don't want to lose this. This is the fear of emptiness. People don't like to hear you don't exist. No, don't say this to me. I am beautiful, I'm powerful, I am strong. What do you mean by I don't exist? So this all childlike stuff, actually. Touch me. See? Things like this. Anyhow, those kind of things. So here, really, it's thinking outside of the box. I think Nagarjuna did that. Of course, Buddha did that, but Buddha was very compassionate. So he said it in a very nice way. And came Nagarjuna. He was very rough on people. He broke the concepts, like, all the other Masidas. They're breaking our concepts, actually. We are stuck, no? We are actually stuck. What I'm saying is we hope to get out of this thing that we are stuck in, and yet we also don't want to get out of that. You want something, that you don't have to get out of that samsara at all. You want to be in samsara, and yet you want to be Buddha. Excuse me, how's that possible actually? No, I want to be in this very box, and then, I want it like here. It's very, childlike. In Tibetan, we go chipa, it's childlike. We are very childlike because we are naive. In many ways, we are naive, actually. In a good sense, and also not a very good sense, too. Very naive because of our ignorance. So they say the height of our ignorance. Can you see that? Is really the height of our ignorance. Here is the Buddha, all these learned people telling us these things. And here we are, asking them to teach us how to get out of this thing. And yet we don't listen to them. No, we don't want that. We want what we want. We don't want what you want. it's a very childlike. No, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear something very nice, that makes me happy, that makes me feel powerful. I don't want to hear something empty. Why? We are afraid of hearing the truth, actually. Really, really afraid of hearing the truth. Deep down inside, we have this fear. So therefore, no. But we need to face the truth. When you face the truth, then I'm thinking fear goes away, correct? Fear was because you didn't see the truth. So if you see the truth, you would have no fear, correct? Unless you see the truth, there always will be fear. So therefore, the insight into emptiness, into impermanence and all that things, dependent arising, all this, that really helps us to see the truth very clearly actually, how things function. If you want to know how things function, the this logic of dependent arising, not cause and effect, but the dependent arising. It's very good actually how things function. This is the reason why things function. um, yes, in Nagarjuna in letter to a friend actually says that. I mean, he says that uh, teaching on dependent arising is one of the most profound teaching that Buddha actually ever gave. Cheprenzo. It says, therefore, you must hold it, must hold it very firmly, I guess, something like that. Okay, I have to move on with the remaining thing. And then now the rest will actually interdependence. They are, meaning phenomena, by their own nature empty, utterly free of being single or multiple, utterly free of being falsehood or truth. It's actually already what I said. Why? Because this, for example, something called emptiness, something called existence is just simply dependent nature. Existence doesn't exist as existence, and then emptiness doesn't exist as emptiness. Something called single doesn't exist. Single because of the multiple, multiple because single. Multiple doesn't exist as a multiple on its own. Single doesn't exist as single on its own. It's just a concept in our head. So this is how we are. And truth and false, same like I said, utterly free of being false or truth. We talk about this is true, we talk about this is lie or true, is simply because of, in the true of their dependent arising. On their own, there's no such thing as lie or truth. It's a concept that we actually created, toward that. Other than that, there's, it doesn't exist. So there now, and then here he gives an example. It's talking about the phenomena, okay? Phenomena, meaning samsara, nirvana, mind, wisdom. Can you see that it's really helping us to go beyond? Simply the advice is, in my understanding, is that do not at all grasp to anything. When they say samsara, do not grasp to the samsara. Do not grasp to the nirvana at all. We need to free ourselves from grasping these things completely, because they are just concept. That's it. They don't exist as a phenomena whatsoever. All right? Like the moon's reflection upon a water, and so on. Knowing this, Buddha taught it to the beings. Yes, there are many examples, like 10 examples, if I remember correctly. In short, in the last, when he gives this, he says all the phenomena, be it samsara, be it nirvana, is like a reflection of the moon in the water. He's simply saying it's an illusion, correct? It's an illusion. Like dream, like mirage, all that. Dream, is because of the awaken because of the dream, all that. They are all an illusion. Illusion created by our own, this confused mind. There is no reality to it. Is there any reality to it? There is no reality to it. This is what we are trying to understand. Really, to the emotion, there is no reality at all. Whether it is a good emotion, bad emotion, doesn't matter. There is no reality to it, in fact, at all. It's beyond that. So, in the end, it's speaking about his Karmapa Rangjun Dorje, in a way, was teaching us, the view, correct? We call it Tawa, actually, the view. Meaning the absolute. What's absolute, actually, so to speak? What's relative? What's absolute? Relative is an illusion. Absolute is actually, free of any characteristics or defining characteristics of illusion or no illusion at all. It's this very thing that's illusion. Okay, this very thing that like dream, that very dream do not exist as a dream at all. Dream is free of, existence of the dream completely. It's same with awakening. What we see, what we hear, same, exactly same. That does not mean that this waking state is true. It's just like dream. It's also, free of any kind of defining characteristics, whatsoever. If there is any defining characteristics to it, actually we are. What time is it? 10? 10:10. It's like Tintin. You say Tintin or 10:10? Making sure you never know what you hear these days. I'm kidding. So yes, I hope I'm clear what I'm actually trying to convey here. When you have time, then you want to, think a little bit about, today we learned about this, concept of dependent arising, okay? And then think what you can really, how you understand that. Because that will help us. It's not very easy, generally speaking. It takes time for that to sort of, for one to really absorb it. Just by hearing, it's very difficult. But it takes time for that to absorb in your mind. Your mind needs to adapt that, again and again. And then there will be a time when you will have that, realization, that understanding, actually, very deep understanding of that, which comes from your heart, which will help us to some extent really lose attachment. I very much believe that when we understand that, it very, in short, when you understand the reality, the truth, it helps you to overcome the attachment, doesn't it? Like if you understood the reality of impermanence, to some extent, you will lose attachment. When you understand the reality of a phenomena, because you had a very different idea about it. But then when you know the truth, then that concept is gone, correct? Whatever it is, they are gone. It's like showing mirror to you. It's like really mirror. Look here, One thinks one have a very different aspect or look, but when you look in the mirror, it's altogether very different. Like that. So the whole thing of teaching, the advice we are receiving from these things is really, that it's all about really understanding both the relative reality. Relative reality is very, very important, really. Like in Nagarjuna again says that, based on the very profound understanding of the reality of the relative reality, accordingly, you will have a very profound understanding of the absolute. After all, the absolute that you are thinking is the absolute reality of that very relative reality that you're trying to understand, actually. It's none other than that. So sometimes we call it, the inseparable nature of ultimate truth and relative truth. There are these terms. It's what I'm trying to explain. It does not mean two things become one. No. It's the same thing, is what we are saying. Almost like, two faces of the same coin. It's very much like that. It is the absolute, it is the relative. It's like, it depends how you flip it, I'm guessing. You flip, you get the head. Okay, so that's absolute. You get the tail, you're in you're in samsara. It's like you flip where I will be, you flip it. It's like, okay, I'll send you, according to how it flips. Buddha says this to you, and you flip it. I'm kidding, right? Actually, you guys are very serious, but I'm kidding. But our karma is doing that to us, correct? I think my karma is doing to that, flipping the karma. Boom, boom. You never know. When I'm dying, my karma is like, okay, now I'm going to flip, now I'm going to flip. Heaven or hell. Just kidding. Very, very crucial point. Anyway, so yes. Uh, right. Okay, now I will, continue with the root text. It actually says how Rangjung Dorje gained realization. Yeah. This particular root text. From what source does this delusion and non-delusion arise? Meaning like samsara and nirvana. What causes samsara? What causes nirvana? I have understood the nature of dependent origination in the same way that one sees one's own reflection in a mirror and knows that there is fire because there is a smoke. And I shall clearly describe it here. Meaning, in this book, Rangju Dorje is going to teach us about what causes samsara, what causes nirvana, and it's a cause and effect. Here he gave two examples, right? Our own reflection in the mirror and the fire and the smoke. They are cause and effect, aren't they? Yes. This body is the cause for the reflection. Mirror is the condition, correct? Mirror does not create my reflection, we all know that. But you do need the mirror or the water. But if you have no body, what will be reflected there? Nothing, you know? So, but then that reflection, can you say that reflection is you? It's not exactly you. Is that you? Because that's not really you. What's the relation between that reflection and yourself? Is there any relation or some kind? And same with the smoke and the fire. And here come up as saying that, again, it's like what I said before. In short, we know that it is, of course, here says that, that samsara is caused by our mind. Nirvana actually is also caused by our mind, but two different types of mind. So now let's, in short, like I said yesterday, but I want to remind a little bit more. Like Chandrakirti says in his book, Madhyamika Avatara, which I quoted yesterday, I'm going to quote again. Quote again. The mind causes both the universe and the inhabitants. The infinite universes and the infinite sentient being, the realm of the sentient beings and sentient beings are caused by the mind. His first line he says that. All of the realms of the sentient beings, are caused by the karma. So he gives this connection between mind and karma, as you can see that. So like I said yesterday, that, if I would to ask you what is the source of karma, what would you say? Source of karma is none other than our own mind, correct? Our own thoughts. Good thoughts, good, bad, ugly, neutral, common thoughts. They create different types of mental impressions, which I said yesterday. But why do we experience that? What is the really root source of, these, these different types of thoughts that we experience, good, bad, ugly, and all these neutral things? This actually is rooted in the notion of me, correct? Notion of self. If there would be no notion of self, there is no reason for us to feel any of that. So it is very much rooted in the notion of self, ego clinging. This ego clinging is ignorance. It is the very first link in the 12 links of dependent origination, the marikpa, which means the ignorance. Ignorance here in the 12 links of dependent origination is same as ego clinging, the self clinging, the notion of I, the notion that something called self, something called I, me, and mine, and the notion that exists truly, that whole notion is termed as self, a person, correct? A person, so to speak. So that actually is the reason why we experience emotion. From, and now you understand that, that why we have this notion of self. We have this notion of self because of misconception, actually, the ignorance. Just like when, like for example, when you see a mirage, as a water, there is no water. So what caused that? That misconception caused that. So you think there is a water. You even go closer thinking that I will drink from it. But at the end, it turns out that it was just a mirage. Because of the conditions, it just made you think that there was a water. But in reality, there never was water in the very first place. Like same, actually, now, this notion of self, notion of other is exactly same. So it's caused by what we call as, the misconception. In Tibetan, we have a word called what? Suljin Mayin Pe Yiche. It's a very good word, Suljin Mayin Pe Yiche. It means Suljin Mayin Pe Yiche. Incorrectly, a perception that perceives incorrectly the object, actually. So in short, it means misperception, correct? In short, it means misperception. Why I'm saying this is that it seems like it's so easy to really know that there's no self. All I need to know is that it was a misperception. Are you getting what I'm saying, actually? But here we are, you know, timelessly having this notion of self. And yet, this notion of self is simply a mistake, simply a misperception. Nothing more, nothing less, just simply a misperception. And we are having this misperception every single day, every single lifetime, timelessly. It's not a good thing at all. We're just being trapped because we are not getting out of that, because of lack of what? Because of lack of wisdom. Can you see that? It's really, this is why it's so important that we must, accumulate wisdom. It is only through this wisdom and knowledge that Buddha gave us, the Buddha Dharma, not so called. I have this bad habit of always saying so called. This Buddha Dharma, correct? It's not the books, okay? It's not the pechas. It's not a person. It's not his body. It is the knowledge, the wisdom that he left behind. And of course, all the great scholars after him who preserved his legacy. And again, like I said yesterday, they are all what? Just a condition. In reality, this is the concept of refuge. Please understand that. It doesn't matter how many times you say it will not bring you Buddhahood at all. It's just a word you're saying. That's not the refuge. Okay, there may be some merit, yes. It must come from you within your insight, like I said, other things. So again, I'm before I lose my track. So therefore, here the wisdom part. Really, what when I learn, when I reflect, I have said this few times, but I'm saying again so that you remember it a little bit more. These outer conditions of the Buddha Dharma, especially the Dharma, right, and the Sangha, who also helps us to understand, the path. What they're doing is that they are maturing my mind, correct, maturing my own wisdom. We already have the wisdom. we inherent the wisdom. It's innate with us, right? The Buddha nature mind. You're learning that actually in Julama, the Buddha nature mind. So when Buddha gave talk, and then when somebody became bodhisattva, Buddha did not make that bodhisattva. Actually, he or she was a bodhisattva innately, let's say. All Buddha did was he planted some conditions, and they very profoundly received that condition. It conditioned them, you know, to experience their own reality, their own wisdom. So therefore, it's like us also, And so this now you can see the concept of refuge actually. This is the real refuge. Learning, reflecting, meditating, and bringing this inner insight, inner wisdom, inner knowledge. This is actually, it includes again renunciation, bodhicitta, and view. They always, are there together. You don't need to do separately. It's actually part of that whole thing, the part of the whole path. So we have a path, correct? Path. That path. Path leads you somewhere. Path is not the result, correct? Path is like we give this example of a boat or an airplane. You don't carry the airplane to your home, actually. It's just a means for you to travel. It's exactly like this, the Buddha teaching of the Dharma. But again, you do need that boat, otherwise, how you're going to cross the ocean or the water, the samsara, so to speak. Without that, you may drown. You will drown. You won't be able to cross the ocean. So you do definitely need that. I'm going to stop there because I don't remember, but I'll continue here. I lost my track of whatever I was saying. Yes, the fire and smoke, yes, so therefore. Okay. Now, yes. So before I go from this, excuse me. What are the, okay, here again, just to give you a little bit more information. Like I said, in Buddhism, we have four school of thoughts, okay? Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chitramatra, Madhyamika. They assert different numbers of consciousness. I'm just giving you some information, okay? Different number. Every one of them do not assert 8 kinds of consciousness. Actually, most of them, they do not assert 8 consciousnesses. Even within the Yogacharya school, we call Samsampa or the Chitramatran, not all of them agree that there are 8 consciousnesses. The ones who actually speak about 8 consciousnesses are Asanga and his brother Vasubandhu. They emphasize on that actually. So it's not, when you say Chitramatra, please do not think every master who follows Chitramatra, talks about it. No. For example, Dignaga, Dharmakirti, the Tsema guys, the ones who initiated the Pramana tradition, they don't. Even within the Madhyamika, they don't actually. So anyway, this is an information I'm giving you. The other thing is that why are we really talking about this is actually it's with regard to the ground of the self. So what is the ground of self? Meaning, so we talk about rebirth, correct? We believe in, let's say, rebirth. So who is actually, or what is born again and again and again? Is it our body? Is it our mind? If it is our mind, what mind is that? Is it eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, or mental consciousness? So when we die, or is it altogether another consciousness? This is actually why we are actually talking about here. So through this, we can actually prove rebirth, what is born again and again. So mind is born again and again without any doubt. So which mind? Now we very much know that it cannot be all of this eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, correct? Why? Because they are dependent on the faculties of this we are going to learn again, the conditioned faculties. So just like when we sleep, go to sleep, they all, meaning our sensory consciousnesses do not function. But then in the dream, we see, we hear, there is the function of all of these sensories, right? So how is that possible? What do you think? It is the mental consciousness, So the mental consciousness plays the role of all of the consciousness actually in the dream. There's only mental consciousness, but it plays the role of all of the consciousnesses in the dream. Likewise, when we die, same thing. Of course, the only thing that's, left, that remains, that go through the bardo, that's born again, that is the mind stream, the mental consciousness. The rest of them, no, they only are experienced when we, develop those faculties. This is why in the mother's womb, during the later months, when they sort of developed more or less the faculties, they also have sense of, they sense things. I don't think they see exactly, hear exactly, but there's a sense. Anyway, so this is a lot to talk about. I'm not going to touch that. But nonetheless, like, so therefore the, okay, so eight consciousness. uh, are very easy to count, actually. Since Kamapa talked, he will list it here as well, but I just want to, list them now. uh, okay. This is I, right? Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body, body consciousness, sensory, we call this Wangshe, Wangpo meaning faculties, because these consciousnesses are, are manifested with association, with the association of the faculties, which we are actually going to know very, very well. So therefore, it's called sensory, the body consciousness. So those are the five, five because of the five sense consciousnesses. And then the mental consciousness is the sixth. So most commonly, we always say there are six of them. And then there are this very particular school who actually also say there are eight of them. So when we talk about eight, the seventh one actually is part of the sixth mental consciousness. Anyway, not to confuse you, it's called deluded mind. In Tibetan, it's called Nyunjik. It actually means obscured mind. This obscured mind is the notion of the self, actually, the notion of the self. So we call Nyuyik because, like I said before, the one that is responsible for all of the emotion that we experience is notion of the self, correct? Notion of self. So we are therefore this notion, the seventh consciousness is that. That's why it's called obscured or emotional, mind that is source of all the emotions, so to speak, seventh consciousness. Eighth consciousness is, the alaya, the ground consciousness. the ground consciousness. But this will be explained in, one by one, so I'm not going to explain. I just thought maybe it's good to mention them, but all of them will be explained in detail here. So this is the part where this book, distinguishing consciousness from wisdom, correct? So wisdom part will be explained in detail. All right, so now I'm going to read the, from the book. The five sensory consciousnesses creates afflictions because of holding and rejecting. This part actually I will explain a bit, okay? It's very, very important. Uh, Holding and rejecting meaning actually craving. Okay, it means actually it is a craving, but two kinds of craving. A craving that we want to hold, that we want to gain, a craving that we want to get rid of, actually, so to speak. Like, for example, joy is a craving, but this is a craving that you hold on to, that you don't want to lose, correct? It's a craving. Now, let's say pain is a craving. It doesn't mean you want it, but it's a craving. It's a craving in the sense that you don't want it, you don't desire it, you want to get rid of that. So here in Tibetan we call langwa and torwa. Langwa meaning actually adopting, langwa meaning, engaging in that because you desire it, you want it, so therefore you do whatever you can in order to achieve that. That's langwa. Then torva meaning rejecting, torva meaning throwing away, actually throwing away. So here, uh, emotionally or thought point of view, the reason we in the 12 links of dependent origination, I think eighth, and the ninth is actually plays very important role here. Craving and grasping, because Sepa and Lempa in the 12 links of dependent origination. Here it goes hand in hand. Can you see that? It goes hand in hand. Now coming back to what I was saying, that why do our emotions continue on is what I'm thinking. I may be wrong, okay? But I'm just sharing something. So, but please analyze yourself too, okay? Sometimes our emotions sort of, stay there and they don't go away, So there's a reason behind that. It's because of this, 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 because of this function of the mind, of the rejecting, of the holding. When we do that, then even when you reject that, actually it stays. When you hold, of course, it stays. So the reason why these emotions, any kind of emotions, sort of stick around is because of basically because of the grasping, in short. But we grasp it in a very different way. We grasp it undesiringly. We grasp it desiringly too. I don't know if that word exists, undesiringly, but it doesn't matter actually. These words are created by us, people, so who cares actually? There is no law against that at all, I'm thinking. Okay, so I don't want to lose my track. But this part I thought is very good for us because we always are trying to see how can we really sort of, help ourselves to some degree, reduce, lessen our emotions. So here the advice is that you want to let go of this holding and rejecting, correct, is what he's saying. But we need this awareness, how you are holding, how you are rejecting, correct? Yes, is what he's saying here. It doesn't have to be very dramatic emotions, okay? It can be very simple, something that you are not even noticing, but it's lingering in your mind. Most of the emotions are lingering in our mind, correct? As far as I'm concerned, I know that. I actually don't really see them until I see them, you know. But when I see them, it's a little bit too late, actually. But it's been there all along. And then I actually understand that, oh, it's been all along there. I could have done something about that. What could I have done is that I could have completely ignored this rejecting, this grasping. Both we must ignore that. So now you can see this is why Shantideva says, you know, that anyone who wants to guard their mind, the only way to do so is through mindfulness and awareness. In Tibetan, mindfulness is slightly different. We call Khenpo and Shejin, anyways. So it's not, just let's stick to the English version of it. Khenpo and Shejin. Both, they go hand in hand. They're not exactly same, yet they're not exactly different. Shejin is more of an awareness of a wisdom. Khenpo is actually more of a, you know, of mindful in the sense of the ability to keep it, the ability that sort of, you know, helps you to guard it. But you, in order to guard, you also need to analyze, correct? So what is it that you analyze your mind with? You analyze your mind with awareness. In meditation, before you enter the meditation, you analyze, you observe. Once when you observe and when you arrive to this very conducive, you know, very conducive conclusion, okay? This is where you abide. So that abiding is the function of the mindfulness, correct? Holding that. But with what did you exactly analyze it? Shejin, the awareness, the wisdom. Here also now you can see that. So I am sitting in my meditation. There is a word in Tibetan like from the 51 mental factor. There's one from the first five, it's called Sempa. Sempa, attentive. It basically means paying attention. When you focus, when you pay attention, you open up the window to analyze. Okay? Analyze. So when you open up the window to analyze, then you analyze. But so when you analyze, this is the function of the shijin, the wisdom. The awareness is analyzing it. Analyzing the state of the mind, your thoughts, your emotions, it's very deep. So this is when we recognize, really, really recognize what is exactly going on in you. Let's put it this way. And at this very moment, whatever you need to reject, whatever you need to keep, is done by the mindfulness, so to speak. So this is what it meant in this case, in here. So now we know that we don't do this. I mean, because of lack of the potential of mindfulness and awareness in us, again Shantideva says, you know, in his book Bodhicharya Avatara, that that an individual whose mind is distracted, yes, whose mind is distracted, is the doorway for all the emotions to enter, actually. We give them, it's like opening the door and asking all the, you know, thieves or thief and let them just steal, you know, everything. It's like, you know, unlocking your door and welcoming the thief and letting them to rip you off completely. It's a very good example. And this is, he's saying, what we are doing when we are not meditating. We are welcoming all the thoughts, all emotions, and we are letting them rip us off all the good qualities, and we are letting them to, improve, strengthen all the negative emotions. So beautiful, actually. I mean, at least that's what I think. And it's true, very, very true. So, anyways, please meditate. Shine is very important for that. Shine, the kame by the as far as I understood. Okay, one thing I want to tell, I'm not a good meditator at all. I actually don't know if I can say myself that I'm a meditator. I'm just sharing these things because I heard this from others. I read it in the book, that's it. So now coming back to what I was saying, that through tranquility, through Shine practice, like I said this morning, so you meditate for 20 minutes or half an hour. During this time, you're exactly doing not much, correct? You're just really trying to experience a very calm state of the mind. Through that very calm state of the mind, the possibility of arising clarity is always there. Through that tranquil, when the mind is in a very tranquil state, Shivardnapa meaning in a very tranquil state, without any distractions, naturally mind is nature of luminous, right? Mind, we don't create that. Mind by its nature is knowing, by its nature of aware, actually. So therefore, this example we sometimes give is like, let's say I have this glass of water and there's mud in it. So then water looks very muddy, But then I, just leave it as it is and I don't tease it. Just let it be. And then all this dust, they settle down. But there's still dust, but they settle down. Water, you see water very clearly. It's like this in this moment. It does not mean you are without emotions or thought or distraction. They're just settled. When they are settled, you can see the true nature of the water, can't you? Before it was yellow. Now you know. Even though the water and the dust were there all along together, but dust always remains as a dust. Do not change into the nature of the water. Water do not become dust. There is no relation between them whatsoever at all. This is why you can take out the dust without harming the water. You have this example in Julama too. Really, I'm thinking this is how it is. But then, for us, since there still is the dust, the chances of them arising again is always there, given that some condition comes around. In that very moment, then again, that water will become very dusty, very muddy. This is like our mind, a very muddy water, mind, very muddy mind. It does not need to be very muddy. What I'm trying to explain here, or what I'm saying is, when we meditate, Shine does not mean close your eye, think nothing, just think only about one thing. In reality, I am thinking that, like I said yesterday, I just really let there be a space for my mind, to for my mind to really manifest as it is. I'm not forcing anything. I'm just letting there be. Like I said, we need to give space to your own mind yesterday. This is very much like Shine. So don't think this, I have to think of Buddha, I have to think of flower, I have to think the breath. Of course, it's good to do sometimes that. But sometimes, just that. Meaning, we just need to be, let it be, correct? How do you do that? I'm saying you just let it be. We really never let it be. We think we must do something. This is when we're teasing them. If you're teasing them, they will never settle. So when we let it be, like this dust, I'm tasting them, thinking this maybe, from the south, from the north, and in all these things, hoping something. Same thing. But when you let it be, actually, when we let it be, then even if there's an emotion, the duration of that emotion is almost non-existence, because the duration of the emotion is less than a split of a second. It's less than a split of a second. So now you imagine it comes, it goes without you being noticing it also. It's that fast. But because of rejecting, because of holding, we prolong them. We prolong, we prolong, we prolong, we get stuck, stuck, stuck. So we don't want to do that. Okay, let me check it. Okay, so I'll read it anyways, the remaining part of that. Forms, so the form are the object of eye consciousness, right? The forms. Sounds, ear conscious smell, nose conscious taste, tongue conscious tactility, body consciousness. Objects. What are these sensory objects? if the wise examine well, they will know that nothing, such as atoms and so on, exists externally as anything other than cognition. Yes, again. Pakcha. You know what's pakcha? He's saying everything is pakcha. uh, Things that we see as, like physical appearance, form, a body, anything like form, that is, you know, produced by our own mental impressions of a form. Correct is what he's saying. Likewise, sounds that you hear, taste that you taste, any kind of experience that you may experience, as these five objects, they are the manifestation of our own very karmic mental impressions that we have stored in our mind. They're nothing that's external. That's nothing, they are not something that, exists externally at all. It's very simple, and this is how in the Chitra Matra in school, they are denying the existence of the phenomena. Again, in Chandrakirti's Madhyamika Avatara, there is an example he gives, and the example is very nice. He gives the example of five individuals. Let's say there are five, individuals from five different realms. Me as a human, another as a god, another one as from the pretas, yadak, hungry ghost. I don't like the word hungry ghost. I actually don't know. Hungry ghost sounds like zombie to me. They're not really yadak, pretas. Anyway, I think you know what I'm saying, but anyways. Okay. So we are all looking at the same object, which is water. This is the example he gives. To me, like I said this morning, or like a little bit earlier, still morning, earlier, relative cognition, relative cognition. Here there is this question of whether or not there is a common mutual object. It's a very good, actually, question. What do you think? Okay, later on, it's common mutual. So here, as far as the beings in the different realm are concerned, there are no common mutual object at all. So this is the water. I say this water because to my conventional cognition as a human being, I see it as water. But to the preta, they don't see it as a water. They see it as a pus or something really, really very ugly and dirty, correct, because of their karma. But to the gods, so to speak, same object is seen as nectar. To the fish, I guess they're home, right? This is what he was saying here. Chumbap lungla yeda nagloyang. Yes, now I remember that. I was thinking of that, in Tibetan it's called Chumbap lungla yeda nagloyang. It doesn't matter, but it's okay. We had a debate on that. We have a little bit debate with Shamrumche. That's why I actually trying to remember that. No, he was teasing me. Anyways, it's a very long story. So, can you mutual object in other ways? For example, a rock star. We have or a movie or a song. Not everyone agree on that, correct? Just because you like it does not mean I have to like it. Just because you like some person do not mean I have to like it. Or just because you find something nice does not necessarily mean everybody must find it nice. So my point is, if that object by on its own exists as beautiful, everyone who perceives that must experience it beautiful. But that's not the case, correct? Be it a song, be it a person. Why do you think that? This is what he's saying here, that everything is your own perception. We have our own perception that decides. We see the same thing. I think we even experience it differently. Even I experience, let's say joy, you experience joy. But there is a difference in the characteristics of the joy. Very different characteristics of the joy. So the object is not doing that, correct? Object is neutral. Object is neutral. Object is neither good nor bad, nothing. It's just an object. But how you see it, how you experience it, it's not the doing of the object, is it? No? So it's doing of our own perceptions, our own mind. Pakcha. Pakcha, habitual tendencies, mental habitual patterns. I sometimes think that this is actually very important. I try to break that pattern, This is like cutting through, thinking out of the box. We really need to learn to, in some cases, need to really, break that pattern. We have a pattern, correct? Just like in other things. There's a mental pattern. Somehow you're born with that. Even if you think, no, nowadays I don't do it, but there always is a touch of your mental pattern. Even when you grow old, there is actually a mental pattern of that. This is why we say people never change. Physically, we all change. We just eventually, grow older and older. Mentally, because we are not able to let go of that pattern. This is why we are stuck. Whether you are young, old, or, a little child, because of the mental pattern, habitual mental pattern. If you want, maybe it's a little bit too much, anyways. Okay. Can I stop now? I think I can stop now. I should stop now, no, because you guys have to rush to eat at 11:30. So that means we can have some questions. All right, I'll take a couple of questions if there is. If not, we can also stop here.
That was very deep session, I must say, and it took us on a roller coaster ride of thought process. So I want to talk about the whatever exists around us, the phenomena, that basically depends upon the existence of certain other conditions, right? And like the cloth I'm wearing, we might say it doesn't exist, right? All the clothes that I have been wearing during my childhood days or my teenage, they have got decayed, decomposed. I don't know where they are. And similarly, the existence of the jeans I'm wearing, it depends on some farmer who grew cotton, and then some machinery, someone who dyed it. So my question is, okay, these are not permanent, these don't exist. So the question is, what exists? What is permanent? So that is one question. And I have got another question also. Like you said, there is existence of samsara and nirvana. Then there is also Mahaparinirvana, which Buddhas, have undergone. So definitely, like Buddhas don't go to heaven, nor they return back to the earth. Where do they go after Mahaparinirvana? Thank you.
Okay, let's see. First, there really is no phenomena that actually is permanent at all. So, but again, like I said, we must, we must separate these two things. The whenever we see when we are talking about samsara, we are talking from the relative point of view. To this relative point of view, to this relative cognition, everything exists. To only to this relative. So I exist, you exist, your clothes and childhood and everything is there as we see, as we experience, because it's named after that. So therefore, we have to, separate that from the absolute point of view. When we see emptiness and parinirvana is spoken from the emptiness point of view, from a very different mindset. So we're talking about two different mindsets. It's important to actually know that. Because if you mix them up, it won't work. So therefore, it's two different things, so to speak, two different state of the mind in reality. And that parinirvana of the Buddha actually basically meaning, the enlightenment. Here, the parinirvana is in terms of Buddha leaving the world, parinirvana. But it does not mean he goes somewhere. It's just a way of saying that, Buddha has accomplished his activities in our universe. So therefore, then, there will be all these other galaxies, infinite galaxies, where then, they may have another, they again sort of appear, manifest in different forms, where they would be just like us. We are born in different universes. I think that's how it should be understood. Again, these are again really spoken from the relative point of view, like Buddha coming to the world and him going, all these other are from the relative point of view. In the absolute, so none of this happening, correct?
Hello, Khenpo. Thank you very much for the teachings. Um, so, yeah, thank you for the teachings. On the notion of emptiness, beyond, as you said, listening and reflecting and meditating on it, do you have further advice on how it should be integrated into our daily life when we're faced with helping someone who's in grief or in the face of violence we're witnessing in the world? I mean, because if we just sort of think of it as empty and illusion, it feels sometimes like a bit of an escape or a bit of indifference. So what would your advice be? Or is it that we should just only think about, in that case, the development of paramitas? That's the first question. And just the second one, a clarification on Sesshin and Drenpa, just to make sure I've understood.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So Sesshin, you're just, sorry.
Shejin.
Shejin, yeah.
Okay.
Shejin, you're analyzing, yeah? You're analyzing the state of your mind. And the second one, Drenpa, it's like when you go away, like when you wander, you bring it back. Is that Drenpa? It's like remembering, yeah?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. As a Buddhist or perhaps as a Dharma practitioner, I would like, for example, I'm giving my own example, okay? So how do I deal when I lose someone? Like, for example, when Shamlongchi passed away, and then also like Gela, Professor Simbadoji, my own mom, a very good friend of mine in the last few years. So there were a lot of, I'm not mourning or anything at all. My point being, what I'm saying is that uh, sometimes we take the help of the, help of the knowledge of the karma I take. For example, I really believe that, what I'm going through, good, bad, ugly, or anything, is my own karma person. I can't say this to someone who's going through a whole lot of horrible things, but in reality, it is because of that. But to Tibetans, we do say that. Tibetans actually say this to other, and they even say that. They even say that, oh, I have this horrible thing, and this is a purification karma, and it's because of my karma. I'm thinking there is some kind of relief. Of course, you don't just kind of completely clean it, it doesn't become clean slate, but there's some kind of, relief in that, knowing that, or at least I'm not blaming anyone except for my own self, which is actually in accordance with the Dharma. The other thing also in my thinking is impermanence. It's not about emptiness or the impermanence. It's a very helpful, I take, help of impermanent. Like if I lose someone, it's all impermanent, whether it is my mom or Rinpoche, even me, not even me, all of us. Sooner or later, we are all going, we will definitely going to leave this world. It's not a big deal, Likewise, pain, joy, success, failure are all different phases in life. They're not permanent, am I right? They're not permanent. Yes, you have phases. Our life is like, these episodes of the phases, good, good phases, bad phases, and then like okay phases, all the phases. So it's all in these things. Nothing really lasts there, in my thinking, Good days come, bad days come. Like me say, every dog has its day, something like that, It's very actually exact to that. It's the truth. I'm saying that when you understand that it's not just you, every single human being or sentient being who is born in this, who is born, goes through the same experience all the time, correct? All the time. So again, this meaning, like when you understand the reality, the truth about samsara, there's something that we cannot change. It's inevitable. Pain is inevitable, as well as joy is also inevitable. You can't say, "Oh, I don't want to be happy." Correct? And you can't say, "I don't want to joy." It's inevitable because this is the truth. So when we, sort of really understand that, then I'm thinking this can help one to let go or grasp less, at least grasp less. And then there is some kind of relief from those things. So as a Buddhist, as a Dharma practitioner, there are many things really. We can take help of teachings on the impermanence, the illusion-like nature of the life, karma, and especially really the reality, that how everything, in fact, is really relative, actually. What I'm saying is all relative. I am relative, my friends are relative, our emotions are relative, because they are not permanent. They are all very much conditioned, very much subject to change inevitably, right? So that's the reality of life. This is what helps us, I'm hoping or I'm thinking, can help us to some extent. Especially one of the reason maybe is because we really sort of take things for granted, in life. When there is some kind of success, people tend to take that for granted. This is where we go very wrong. You cannot take anything for granted. Nothing is granted at all, inevitably, so to speak. It's inevitable to fall, it's inevitable to rise, but it's not in your hand. If you think I did it on my own, it's not true. Actually, it's because of your karma. Again, I'm saying this from my own point of view. Many people think that, I made it myself. It's not very true. It's because of your karma. So falling, rising, it's just part and parcel of life. This is what life is all about, correct? So then what can you do actually at all? You can't do very much about it. There's no controlling for that. No one can, I really believe and trust that no one can control their life. I know many people say I can control, but I don't agree with those things. You can think whatever you like, but I don't think so at all. The only thing that controls us is our karma, and the reality, the impermanence, actually controls us. Our mind controls us, our emotion controls us, correct? We don't control them. So here, Dharma is actually the help. We're using Dharma to work with that, so to speak. So there are many those things that I'm thinking perhaps one can use, for that. So maybe the emptiness part, maybe not a great idea at this point of time, when someone is grieving or suffering, and if you say emptiness. But yes, I agree with that. It actually is very, very helpful too. But when things are not that very intense, like emotion-wise, on a regular basis, if you think of dependent arising, like I said before, it really is very, very helpful. And this will help you, also then in at a later time, when this become your knowledge, this is when you receive help from that in those occasions. Okay, sure.
Me and some fellow practitioners, dharma practitioners here are having a craving for liberation and enlightenment. And you said that this craving and attachment for anything is what holds us to getting there. We need to get rid of attachment. And I see it, it's like a mental paradox. We want liberation and Buddhahood, and yet we should get rid of this attachment of Buddhahood.
Okay.
How, what you would recommend us in this situation? How should we do?
Understood. Yes, but I think you actually, when I say we should get rid of craving, grasping, I think you all know from the emotion point of view, correct? As far as this desire to achieve Buddhahood, desire to achieve enlightenment is very good. We need that. It actually is desire, but it's more than desire. It is, that's our wish to achieve that. So we take help of those things, so to speak. It is very different from the emotion point of view. I don't think there is any emotion in that from that regard point of view. So yes, we need to we need to separate these things, right? In general, anything that causes you pain, any kind of desire, craving, grasping, cause you pain, others pain, you don't want that. Even if it is happiness, but if it is causing pain, you don't want that. So we have to differentiate that actually. So relatively speaking, yes, of course, we I don't know if I can say it craving or grasping or things like this, but attachment, yes, attachment. But this attachment is slightly different in the in that regard, because it's not exactly influencing my ego. I would like to think this way. The other craving, grasping influences my ego. When I think of enlightenment, bodhicitta, it doesn't influence my ego actually. So rather it actually influences me to have more compassion, to have more wisdom, to have more patience. So it works very differently, even though it may sound like craving, attachment, but it works very differently, I'm thinking. So of course we have to separate those things. But I think you know at the end, you know what actually I was saying when I was saying those things. All right, so we will now stop here and say the dedication. Sunam dia tam je ziba ni to na ye pe da na ya pam che. Che ga na che ma la ye tu ba ye se be an so le an do wa re sho. Ge wan di ye ki wo ye ke sunam ye she so do ni. Sunam ye she le chung wa tam ba ku ni to ba re sho. Minjuro lombo kuya tashi sho yan la ya tukjo sungye tashi tatala time tukje tashi sho gyalve kuson tukje tashi sho changcho semcho rimbo che mache pana che churu kepa nyamba mepa tang kongne kongdo pelwa rai sho. Thank you and have a very good day.